video, what we were looking at is the construction of this using what I'm calling a painting interface, where you look at a polygon and you sort of drag over top and then add a new polygon. And so yeah, and what you can do is you can just sort of if you'd like, you can add some color to it, and rather than making it so dull, and just sort of clicking on certain ones and adding them. And so what's interesting about that is that the way you see a nice picture here, but if you hadn't noticed, there's something going on over here. And so let me just back up a little bit and get rid of these extra ones. Oops. Um, so here, this code is actually generating this. And so when you are using this interface of adding things, right? And so by adding something, you can see it changes things over here. So let me just do that again. So if you notice that last little bit, I've added a triangle, and so that adds that little 3. And so it sort of highlights that this here has some weird structures. It's more like a built on a tree. And so rather than focus on this one, perhaps one of these other examples might be a little bit more easy to follow. And so here, this D, what you can see here over with this code with the 4444, that thing here, this is a different style or representation for this image. And so rather than sort of sitting there and sort of adding, what you see is this being automatically generated. And so what's interesting is that eventually there's an advantage to using this rather than dragging. And so what you see is I'm actually generating the same picture fairly quickly. And so this path was generated directly without having to use that painting interface. And so this is a bit of a kitchen sink of interfaces. It's got lots of different things happening on. And so but part of it is that it allows you to sort of see what's going on. And so this little aspect down here, this little arrow, allows you to see arrows of what was constructed. And you can now focus on the path that these polygons took to get this done. And it's a fairly simple path, also denoted by these 4s with a turn. And so after a while, you'll see that certain patterns that you draw are going to be easier when you do this. And so let's look at this next pattern. And so I'm going to get rid of this one and then add this one. And so you can sort of see this big spiral. It's just a bunch of 4s with reds, turns. And so red, turn, 4, red, turn, etc., all the way down. And so you can sort of see how it's generated. But it's a fairly simple path versus when you look at these other ones here. And so what's nice is you don't have to think about it if you don't want to, but there are definitely going to be some paths that are going to be easier. Like this last one, let's go back to that one. This last one here, you'll note that it's a lot of different polygons. And so it turns out that I sort of tell you that there's 66 of these individual characters, and each character is going to give you some sort of effect here. And so so yeah, and if you want, you can use the arrow keys to sort of jump around this, and so you can sort of see where you are in each one of these. And so instead of making this one red, you could sort of delete the red and turn it to, say, blue or something. Or if you didn't turn that way and got rid of it, it would go straight. And you could actually turn the other way, right? And so if I turn the other way, you can see what the effects are. But so the language here can be a little bit more handy for certain shapes. And so if I start again, and I'll show you a different shape. So here, if I go, say, 4, well, actually, let me start with the 5, because the 5 is a bit more interesting. Because if you note that it changes a path direction a little bit differently. And so if I keep hitting 5s, what you'll see is it goes around in a circle. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. And then if you wanted to turn in, you could do something like that. And so the code is a bunch of fives followed by this. And so, let me just store that. And you think, okay, no big deal. So one of the things that you can do, though, that makes your life interesting is when you place these things down, you can actually place another one down on top of it. And so making certain types of patterns becomes very, well, not that many steps. So once again, I just did 55 little steps, and really it wasn't that big a deal. Anyway, we'll get to that in a bit, but you can sort of look at this pattern and say, hey, let's put those arrows on again and see how it was created, which is a little bit more confusing for sure. But anyway, yeah, so that's the next step to be thinking about, that we're actually going to be focused a little bit more on these codes rather than just the output. But still, once again, you can print this um, in a printer friendly way, or use up your colors. Anyway, that's it for today. Cheers.